It really feels like educational institutions are navigating, well, a perfect storm right now. You've got constant tech shifts, the perennial struggle for funding,
Uh,
and this huge pressure to equip graduates for a job market that's, changing incredibly fast.
Absolutely. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And for anyone trying to stay informed, it can feel like just information overload.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what we're diving deep today. We're looking at a recent announcement from EON Reality about their AI Academies platform.
Right.
Our aim is really to cut through the noise, you know, understand what this initiative is actually proposing and, well, what it might mean for the future of education.
Okay, good plan. We've got the press release here outlining this new partnership model. So over the next few minutes, we'll explore why this platform might matter, what it actually is, what it delivers, and how it's designed to impact different parts of the education sector.
Think of it as your concise guide, basically, a way to grasp a potentially transformative development.
Perfect. So where do we start? What are the core issues EON Reality seems to be tackling?
Okay, well, they start with what they call the transformation imperative.
Transformation imperative sounds significant.
It is. It's not just about, like, tweaking things. It's this fundamental need for educational institutions to really evolve for the AI era.
Mm-hmm.
The argument is, basically, if they don't make this deep adaptation, they could really risk becoming, well, irrelevant.
Right. So it's a pretty stark warning, not just about adding a few AI tools, but a much more profound shift needed.
Exactly. And that ties straight into the second challenge they highlight, resource constraints.
Ah, yes, the money and people problem. Let's face it, many institutions are running on tight budgets, aren't they?
Totally. And they might lack the in-house expertise or capacity to manage such a huge technological overhaul all by themselves.
The cost, the complexity,
Yeah,
it can just seem impossible for many.
precisely. It can be completely prohibitive. And then the third point EON raises is the value chain disconnection.
Okay, what's that about?
That's the growing worry, that traditional education isn't always lining up effectively with what the economy actually needs today.
Right, the skills gap we hear so much about,
Yeah.
a mismatch between what's taught and the jobs available.
Exactly. It's a growing concern.
Okay, so institutions face this pressure to transform, but they often lack the resources, and there's this question mark over whether they're preparing students adequately. That's the context.
That's the setup.
So, given all that, what does the AI Academies platform actually offer as a solution? What's the pitch?
Well, the core of their proposition is what they call a complete learning-to-earning pathway.
Learning to earning.
Okay. And it's not just presented as, like, a collection of separate tools. It's framed as an integrated ecosystem.
An ecosystem. Interesting. What's in it?
So it includes the AI Academy itself. That's for the educational content. Then there's a career compass for guidance and development,
Makes sense.
entrepreneur guide, and also something called Vibe Coder, which seems to be their tool for developing applications, maybe within their immersive learning stuff.
Right.
Well, the whole idea is to create this seamless journey from learning something to actually applying it for economic benefit.
Okay, so an integrated system trying to bridge that gap we talked about between learning and actually earning a living. That sounds ambitious.
It is ambitious,
Yeah.
and they really emphasize this true transformation partnership idea.
How's that different from, the usual way an institution might buy software from a vendor?
Yeah, that's a really crucial distinction they make. Traditional vendor relationships, often transactional. You buy a product, you get support maybe, but that's it.
Right.
This model proposes something deeper, a collaboration involving shared investment and, importantly, value-based compensation.
Value-based, meaning?
Meaning EON's success, their financial return, is directly linked to the positive outcomes the institution actually achieves using the platform.
Ah, okay. So they have skin in the game, so to speak. It's not just, here's the tech, good luck.
Exactly. It sounds like a much more vested interest in the institution's overall success.
Now, for any institution looking at a big change like this, risk is always a huge factor, isn't it? How does this platform address that concern?
They highlight a risk mitigation framework. Essentially, they state that EON Reality takes on a significant chunk of the risk.
What kind of risk?
Technological risk, implementation risk, and even some of the initial financial risk. The idea is to lower the barrier to entry for institutions
Okay.
and minimize the potential disruption that comes with such a big project.
That sharing of initial financial risk, that
Ah.
could be really appealing, especially with those tight budgets we mentioned.
Definitely. And they also talk about a sustainable revenue model, which, again, for institutions facing constant funding pressure.
Is music to their ears, probably? How does that work? What are they suggesting?
They're proposing the potential for quite significant revenue growth. They mention figures in the range of 300–500% within about 2 years.
Wow, that's a bold claim. Where would that revenue come from?
The projection seems to be based on things like launching new programs, gaining operational efficiencies through the platform, and being able to reach a wider base of students.
Right, maybe extending reach online or offering specialized courses.
Exactly. Potentially launching in-demand programs without needing the massive traditional upfront investment in buildings and equipment.
Okay, a potential 300–500% revenue growth. That really does sound transformative. It suggests a fundamental change in how institutions might operate financially.
It certainly does. They also mentioned something called a third-way educational model.
A third way. What's the thinking there?
Well, the goal seems to be overcoming that classic trade-off you often see between the quality of education and how accessible it is.
Right, it's often seen as one or the other. High quality might mean high cost and limited access.
Precisely. So by using immersive technologies, they suggest they can deliver really engaging, high-quality learning experiences,
Okay.
but in a way that's accessible to a much wider audience and potentially at a lower cost per student than traditional methods.
So trying to get the best of both worlds. Better quality and broader reach. That's a compelling idea.
It is. And then there's this claim about virtual access to equipment. That sounds pretty significant, too.
Yeah. What was that figure?
They state the platform provides virtual access to something like $50 billion worth of specialized equipment.
50 billion. How?
Through virtual labs and simulations. So students could get invaluable practical experience with high-end tools, machines, processes, things that would just be completely unaffordable for most institutions to buy physically.
Okay. That could be a game changer for certain fields, definitely.
Yeah.
Practical skills without the massive capital outlay.
Huge potential there.
So this platform seems to be offering a very comprehensive, almost holistic approach. Let's think about how it might transform specific educational sectors. What about K-12, for instance?
Okay, for K-12, the focus seems to be on shifting towards more immersive learning, making lessons more engaging maybe.
Right.
And also really aligning the curriculum with the skills needed for future jobs. Future-proofing, you could say.
Mm-hmm. And finances.
Yes, and also supporting the development of more sustainable financial models for schools, which is always a challenge in K-12.
Future skills and financial stability. Okay. What about, say, technical and vocational training, like community colleges or trade schools?
For those institutions, a key potential benefit they highlight is rapidly expanding the range of programs they offer.
Without needing new buildings or equipment.
Exactly. Without the traditional huge capital investment in physical infrastructure, the platform could also help create industry-recognized credentials.
Which should lead to better job outcomes for graduates.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Better employment outcomes, and positioning those colleges as key regional hubs for workforce development.
Being able to adapt quickly to what local industry needs.
Yeah, that sounds crucial for that sector.
Definitely.
And then higher education, universities.
For higher ed, the conversation often revolves around reinventing how education is delivered, using these tools to maybe extend their global reach without building new campuses everywhere. Right, reaching international students or non-traditional learners.
Exactly. And it also directly addresses that critical issue of financial sustainability, especially with fluctuating enrollments that many universities face.
While still maintaining academic quality and integrity, presumably.
That's the aim, yes. Balancing innovation with rigor.
Okay. Reaching wider, staying financially stable, upholding standards. Big challenges for universities. And finally, what about incubators and entrepreneurship programs?
Yeah, that's an interesting application too. The goal there seems to be improving the success rates of the startups they support.
Helping more ventures actually make it.
Right. And also allowing those incubator programs to scale up their operations without needing a proportional increase in staff or resources.
Doing more with less, essentially.
And they also propose creating revenue models for the incubators that are actually tied to how well the startups they foster perform. So again, that shared success idea.
More successful startups and a more sustainable model for the incubators themselves through virtual mentoring and maybe faster development cycles.
Seems to be the idea.
Okay. We touched on this earlier, but just to be really clear, could you summarize those key differences again between this proposed partnership model and a traditional vendor relationship?
Sure. I think the fundamental shift is this. Moving from a transactional product-focused setup,
where you just buy a thing.
Right. To a strategic partnership that's really centered on shared outcomes. What does the institution actually achieve?
Okay. And financially?
The financial model moves away from big upfront fees towards shared investment and that value-based compensation we talked about.
Risk.
Risk is largely taken on by EON, especially initially. That's a major difference.
And the scope.
The scope isn't just, here's the technology. It's meant to be a framework for comprehensive transformation.
With shared responsibility for making it work.
Exactly. Shared accountability for the results, not just checking if the software functions technically.
That really crystallizes the difference. And you mentioned a quote from EON Reality's chairman.
Yeah, Dan Legerskar. He basically stated that what educational institutions need today isn't just another technology vendor.
Right.
But a transformation partner. Someone with the vision and, crucially, the commitment needed for fundamental reinvention.
A transformation partner. That phrase really sums up the message they're putting out there, doesn't it?
It absolutely captures the core of their offering. It's positioned as a collaborative journey, not just a simple sale.
Okay, so wrapping this up. In essence, EON Reality's AI Academies platform is proposing this deep partnership model. It's designed to help educational institutions handle the complexities of the AI era we're entering.
Right. By providing that comprehensive path from learning to earning.
By sharing the risks involved in making such a big transformation.
And ultimately aiming to drive pretty significant growth and change for the institutions involved.
Allowing them to offer, hopefully, more relevant, more accessible educational experiences than maybe was possible before.
That's the vision. And it does leave you, the listener, with something to think about, doesn't it?
Like what?
Well, if you can potentially remove some of these big technological and financial hurdles in education, what new kinds of learning experiences really do become possible?
Good question.
And perhaps even more broadly, how might this kind of shift towards a learning-to-earning model reshape the whole connection between education and the economy in the years to come?
Yeah, those are fascinating questions to ponder. What does the future of learning and work look like if models like this take hold?
Exactly.
All right, well, if you want to explore this specific platform further, you can actually download EON Reality's white paper. It's called AI Academies Learning to Earning Transformation for Educational Institutions.
I think you should have the details.
And you can also find more information, articles, and updates on their EON XR Spoken blog. Lots to dig into if you're interested.